An ex-FBI agent just revealed why arrest may be near in Nancy Guthrie's case. And what she's saying about the evidence, about the billboards that just went up across 4 states, about the additional camera footage that was just recovered from Nancy's property, and about why the FBI is using forensic genealogy on mixed DNA changes everything about how close investigators are to identifying who took her. Former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, who spent her career investigating major cases, analyzed the latest developments in Nancy's disappearance and explained both the good news and the bad news. The good news is that the FBI just launched a massive billboard campaign across Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and California, spreading Nancy's face and the FBI tip line number across major cities including El Paso, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Phoenix, Albuquerque, and Los Angeles. The good news is that additional images have been recovered from motion-activated cameras at Nancy's home that were trained on the swimming pool, the backyard, and the side yard, potentially showing more of the suspect's movements. The good news is that Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed investigators believe they know why Nancy was targeted and believe the motive, even though they won't reveal it publicly yet. The good news is that DNA evidence continues to be analyzed through forensic genealogy, despite the challenges of it being mixed DNA from several people. But there's bad news too, according to Coffindaffer's analysis. The bad news is that the billboard campaign uses what she calls a shotgun approach to where they've been posted, meaning the billboards are spread across multiple states covering enormous geographic areas, which she says shows little direction about where investigators actually believe the suspect might be. The bad news is that the billboards feature Nancy's photo but do not feature the masked suspect's photo from the doorbell camera footage. Coffindaffer wrote on social media, quote, "Show him. He's the key. If the goal is getting someone to recognize the suspect and call in tips, showing the suspect's photo, even though he's masked, would be more effective than showing only the victim who is already well known from massive media coverage." But the overall assessment from this experienced former FBI agent who understands how investigations work and what indicators suggest cases are moving toward resolution is that arrest may be near, may be approaching, may be imminent based on evidence that exists and based on how investigators are allocating resources and based on patterns that suggest progress even when specific details are not disclosed publicly. Why does Coffindaffer believe arrest could be near? Because of forensic genealogy being used on DNA evidence. Because of the additional camera footage that was just recovered, showing more of what happened at Nancy's property. Because of Sheriff Nanos confirming investigators believe they know the motive. Because of the billboard campaign itself, which indicates investigators want maximum public awareness and maximum tips coming in, which is what you do when you're close and need that one final piece of information. All of those indicators together suggest the investigation is in late stages rather than early stages. If you want to understand why former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer believes arrest may be near in Nancy Guthrie's case, and what specific evidence and investigative actions indicate progress toward identification, what the billboard campaign across 4 states tells us about investigative strategy, and why Coffindaffer says the good news is spreading awareness, but the bad news is the shotgun approach shows little direction about where the suspect actually is, what the additional camera footage recovered from Nancy's swimming pool and backyard and side yard potentially shows beyond the doorbell footage we've already seen, and why motion-activated cameras that were not initially mentioned might have captured critical movements. Why Sheriff Nanos saying investigators believe they know the motive but won't reveal it publicly suggests they're protecting the integrity of an investigation that's approaching charges being filed. How forensic genealogy works on mixed DNA that contains profiles from several people, and why that process, despite being challenging, is exactly what has solved major cold cases and is being used right now to build family trees that will identify Nancy's kidnapper. What it means that the FBI is using billboards in specific cities across 4 states, and why Coffindaffer questions whether those locations were chosen strategically or represent investigators casting a wide net because they don't have precise information about the suspect's location, and why all of these developments from mid-March 2026 suggest the investigation has reached a critical phase where identification could happen soon. Then subscribe to True Crime Vault right now. This channel provides expert analysis from former FBI agents and law enforcement professionals, explaining what investigative actions actually mean, and how to read the signs that suggest cases are approaching resolution versus cases that are stalled. Hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications, because when Nancy's case breaks and an arrest happens, you want to understand what evidence made it possible and how investigators used forensic genealogy and camera analysis and systematic detective work to converge on identification. Hit the like button as well, because expert FBI analysis deserves to reach everyone following this case. And comment below with your thoughts on whether the billboard campaign will generate the tips that lead to arrest. Now let us examine what Jennifer Coffindaffer revealed about why arrest may be near and what each piece of evidence tells us. Jennifer Coffindaffer is a retired FBI special agent who spent her career investigating major criminal cases, including kidnappings and violent crimes, and cases that required sophisticated forensic analysis and systematic investigation. After retiring from the FBI, she has worked as an expert analyst, providing commentary on major cases for media outlets and for the public through social media, where she explains what evidence means and how investigations work based on her decades of experience. When Newsweek asked Coffindaffer to analyze the latest developments in Nancy Guthrie's case in mid-March 2026, more than 6 weeks after Nancy disappeared on February 1st, Coffindaffer provided assessment of both positive and negative aspects of where the investigation stands. The FBI just launched a billboard campaign in partnership with Clear Channel Outdoor to spread awareness about Nancy's case across 4 states. Billboards featuring Nancy's photo and the FBI tip line number have been posted in major cities across Arizona, where Nancy disappeared, Texas, New Mexico, and California. Specific cities include El Paso, Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston in Texas, Phoenix in Arizona, Albuquerque in New Mexico, and Los Angeles in California. That is 7 major cities across 4 states, covering enormous geographic area and reaching millions of people who drive past those billboards daily. An FBI spokesperson told Fox News when announcing the billboard campaign that the hope is it, quote, will lead to the crucial piece of information that helps us bring Nancy home. Billboard campaigns in missing persons cases serve multiple purposes. They keep the case in public awareness so people don't forget. They reach people who might not follow news closely but who drive past billboards and see them. They generate tips from people who might recognize the victim or might have seen something relevant. And they put psychological pressure on anyone with information, including potential accomplices or people who know the suspect, by reminding them constantly that law enforcement is actively seeking information and offering substantial rewards. Jennifer Coffindaffer's analysis of this billboard campaign included both positive and negative assessment. She posted on social media platform X that she is glad the FBI is using billboards to spread awareness about Nancy's case. Billboard campaigns have proven effective in other cases, generating tips that led to breakthroughs. Getting Nancy's face and the FBI tip line in front of millions of people across 4 states increases the chances that someone with relevant information will see it and will call. That is the good news, according to Coffindaffer. But Coffindaffer also identified what she considers bad news about how the campaign was implemented. She described the billboard placement as using a, quote, shotgun approach to where they have been posted. Shotgun approach means spreading wide without precise targeting, covering large areas rather than focusing on specific locations. Coffindaffer said this approach, quote, shows little direction about where investigators actually believe the suspect might be located or where they believe relevant witnesses might be. What does Coffindaffer mean by this criticism? If investigators had strong evidence or strong theory that the suspect fled to Texas specifically, or to California specifically, or to New Mexico specifically, the billboards would be concentrated in that state or that region. If investigators believed the suspect was in the El Paso area, for example, multiple billboards would be in El Paso and surrounding areas rather than spreading one billboard each across 7 cities in 4 states. The fact that billboards are spread across such enormous geographic area, covering multiple states and cities hundreds of miles apart, suggests investigators do not have precise information about where the suspect went after taking Nancy. They are casting a wide net, hoping the billboard campaign will reach wherever the suspect or witnesses might be. That lack of direction about the suspect's location could indicate investigators have not yet identified the suspect specifically. If they knew who they were looking for, they would know where that person lives, or where that person's known associates are located, and could focus billboard placement and investigative resources in those areas. The shotgun approach suggests the investigation is still in the phase of trying to identify who the suspect is, rather than in the phase of knowing who it is and trying to locate them. But Coffindaffer's most significant criticism of the billboard campaign is that the billboards feature Nancy's photo, but do not feature the masked suspect's photo from the doorbell camera footage. She wrote on X, quote, "Show him, he's the key." That statement reflects a fundamental principle of missing persons investigations involving abduction. People are more likely to recognize a suspect than to recognize a victim, especially when the victim is elderly and the suspect is the active agent in the crime. Nancy is already well known from massive media coverage. Her face has been on television news, on websites, on social media extensively since February. Anyone who follows news even casually has seen Nancy's photo dozens of times. Putting her photo on billboards reaches people who don't follow news, but the photo itself is not new information. But the suspect's photo from the doorbell footage, even though his face is masked, might trigger recognition from someone who knows him. The way he moves, the way he positions his body, his height and build visible in the footage, the black mustache that FBI analysis identified, the equipment he carries, all of those characteristics create a profile that might be recognizable to people who know him. Former FBI profiler Jennifer Coffindaffer said in previous analysis that the suspect is, quote, "very identifiable. The eyebrows, the mustache, the way he attires himself, the pinky ring he wears. When you add that all together, I firmly believe that one, if not many, know who that is." If people who know the suspect might recognize him from the doorbell footage, putting that footage on billboards would be more likely to generate identification tips than putting Nancy's photo on billboards. Coffindaffer's criticism that the billboards should show the suspect rather than just the victim reflects that investigative principle. The suspect is the key to solving the case. Identifying him is what investigators need. Someone who recognizes him from the footage calling in a tip could immediately solve the case. That opportunity is lost when billboards show only the victim. Now let me explain the significance of the additional camera footage that was just recovered from Nancy's property and why motion-activated cameras that were not initially discussed might show critical information. ABC News reported that the FBI has recovered additional images from motion-activated cameras at Nancy's home. These cameras, according to the reporting, were trained on the swimming pool, the backyard, and the side yard. That is different from the doorbell camera at the front entrance that captured the 44 seconds of footage showing the masked suspect disabling the camera. Why are motion-activated cameras on the pool and backyard and side yard significant? Because they potentially captured the suspect's movements beyond just the front door approach. The doorbell camera showed the suspect arriving at the front door at 1:47 a.m. and disabling that specific camera, but what happened next is not captured by that camera once it was covered. Did the suspect enter through the front door or through a different entrance? Did the suspect spend time in the backyard or side yard either before approaching the front door or after taking Nancy from the house? Did the suspect use the pool area as an approach path or as an exit route? Motion-activated cameras trigger and begin recording when they detect movement in their field of view. If the suspect walked through the backyard or side yard at any point during the 41-minute window between 1:47 a.m., when the doorbell camera captured him, and 2:28 a.m., when Nancy's pacemaker disconnected, those motion-activated cameras would have captured that movement. Even if the suspect tried to avoid the front doorbell camera by approaching from a different direction, the backyard and side yard cameras might have recorded the approach. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed on Friday, March 14th, that they continue to analyze various forms of evidence, including, quote, material from laboratories, as well as images and videos captured by cameras. That confirmation that camera analysis is ongoing, and that videos, plural, are being examined, suggests there is more footage than just the original doorbell camera video that was released in February. The additional motion-activated camera footage from pool and backyard and side yard areas is part of that ongoing analysis. What might that additional footage show? If the suspect approached from the backyard or side yard rather than from the front, cameras in those areas would show the approach path and might show the suspect from different angles than the front doorbell camera captured. Different angles might reveal additional identifying characteristics. Might show the suspect's face from a side angle, even if it's masked. Might show how the suspect moves and walks, which gait analysis can use to identify people. Might show equipment or items the suspect was carrying that were not visible in the front camera view. If the suspect spent time in the backyard or side yard after taking Nancy from the house, cameras in those areas might show the suspect with Nancy, might show whether Nancy was walking voluntarily or being carried or being coerced, might show what direction they went when leaving the property, might show whether a vehicle was positioned in an area not visible from the front. All of that information would be valuable for understanding the sequence of events and for identifying how the suspect planned and executed the abduction. The fact that this additional camera footage is being mentioned now in mid-March, 6 weeks after Nancy disappeared, suggests either it took time to recover the footage through technical means similar to how the doorbell camera footage was recovered despite no cloud subscription, or investigators are revealing its existence now as part of strategy to generate tips. If people in the neighborhood or people who know the suspect realize that multiple cameras captured multiple angles and multiple moments, that might encourage them to come forward with information because they understand investigators have more evidence than just the one doorbell video. Now let me explain why Sheriff Chris Nanos saying investigators believe they know the motive is significant for understanding how close the case is to resolution. In his interview with NBC News that aired on Thursday, March 13th, Sheriff Nanos made a statement that represents the most significant revelation from law enforcement about understanding the why behind Nancy's abduction. Quote, "We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted." That statement contains critical information. Investigators have developed a theory about motive. They believe they understand why the suspect took Nancy specifically, and they are confident this was targeting rather than random crime. But Nanos immediately qualified by saying, quote, "But we're not 100% sure of that," which means the motive theory is strong and supported by evidence but has some element of uncertainty, some aspect that is not definitively proven yet. That uncertainty is why Nanos declined to reveal publicly what investigators believe the motive is. Revealing an unconfirmed theory could compromise the investigation if the theory is wrong, or if revealing it alerts the suspect to what investigators know. Why does believing they know the motive suggest arrest may be near? Because understanding motive helps investigators narrow the suspect pool dramatically. If the motive is financial gain through ransom targeting an elderly woman whose daughter is wealthy, investigators focus on people who knew about Nancy's connection to Savannah and who had financial motivation. If the motive is related to elder abuse and vulnerability exploitation, investigators focus on people who had access to Nancy and who identified her as vulnerable. If the motive is something else entirely, that directs investigation in different directions. Having a theory about motive that investigators believe is likely correct means the investigation is not flailing randomly examining every possible explanation. It means investigators have focused their efforts based on understanding why this crime happened, which allows much more efficient use of resources. Cases that solve quickly are cases where investigators understand motive early and can direct all efforts toward finding suspects who match that motive. Cases that remain unsolved for long periods are often cases where motive remains unclear, and investigators have to examine too many possibilities simultaneously. Sheriff Nanos also said something in that NBC interview that is significant for public safety and for understanding the nature of the suspect. He warned that the suspect could, quote, "absolutely strike again." He told people, quote, "Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. No, keep your wits about you." That public warning indicates investigators believe the motive is something that could apply to other potential victims rather than being unique to Nancy. If this was personal targeting based on a specific grudge against the Guthrie family, other people would not be at risk. The warning that others should remain vigilant suggests the motive involves characteristics that other potential victims share with Nancy, such as being elderly and vulnerable with wealthy family members. Now let me explain why forensic genealogy on mixed DNA is critical and why former FBI agents believe it will lead to identification. Sheriff Nanos has confirmed that DNA evidence from Nancy's home that does not belong to her or to people in close contact with her is being analyzed. Nanos said he remains hopeful that this DNA, quote, could lead law enforcement to the suspect, but he also acknowledged challenges. The DNA is mixed, meaning it contains profiles from several people. Separating mixed DNA into individual profiles is technically complex and time-consuming. The Pima County Sheriff's Department said investigators would seek to use investigative genetic genealogy in the investigation. Forensic genealogy is the technique that has solved major cold cases in recent years, including the Golden State Killer case and dozens of others. It works by uploading DNA profiles to public genealogy databases, where they are compared against millions of voluntary submissions from people exploring their ancestry. Matches indicate shared genetic ancestry. Forensic genealogists build family trees from those matches to identify potential suspects. Why do former FBI agents believe forensic genealogy will solve Nancy's case? Because it has proven extraordinarily effective in cases where DNA exists but does not match anyone in criminal databases. The DNA from Nancy's home might not match anyone in CODIS if the perpetrator has no prior criminal record. But that same DNA can be traced through genealogy to identify family members and build trees that lead to the perpetrator, even if he has never been arrested before. The process takes time, especially with mixed DNA, because profiles must be separated before they can be uploaded to genealogy databases. But once that separation is complete, and once the genealogy work begins, identification often follows within weeks or months. Cases that were cold for decades have been solved through this technique. Nancy's case is only 6 weeks old, with active investigation and substantial resources devoted to it. If forensic genealogy is being used, identification could happen relatively quickly compared to historical cold cases. The billboard campaign itself suggests investigators are in a phase where public tips could make the difference. You launch massive billboard campaigns when you need one more piece of information, when you have strong evidence and strong theories but need someone to recognize something or to come forward with the missing piece. You don't launch billboard campaigns in the early days when you have no leads and no direction. You launch them when you're close and need public help to close the final gap. All of these indicators together, the forensic genealogy work on DNA, the additional camera footage being analyzed, investigators believing they know the motive, the massive billboard campaign across 4 states, suggest the investigation has reached late stages. Former FBI agents who understand these patterns can read the signs. Jennifer Coffindaffer saying arrest may be near is based on seeing all of these indicators and recognizing they point toward resolution approaching rather than toward investigation just beginning. True Crime Vault will continue covering Nancy's case as it develops. Subscribe for expert analysis from former FBI agents. Turn on all notifications for updates when arrest happens. Like this video to support comprehensive evidence-based coverage. Visit our channel for all previous detailed analysis. Comment with your thoughts on whether the billboards will generate the crucial tip. And if you have information, contact FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or Sheriff at 520-351-4900. Rewards exceeding $1,200,000 remain available. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 6 weeks. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer says arrest may be near based on evidence and investigative actions that indicate progress. The billboard campaign spreads awareness across 4 states. Additional camera footage from pool and backyard areas is being analyzed. Forensic genealogy is working to identify suspects from DNA. Investigators believe they know the motive. All of these point toward identification approaching. And when arrest happens, the evidence will show how systematic investigation and forensic science and public awareness combine to solve the case and bring justice for Nancy and her family.